At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our May action meeting. First up on our agenda this evening, we have the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the regular action meeting dated April 26th and the board work session special action meeting dated April 12th, 2016, and the executive sessions dated April 12th and 26th, 2016. Mrs. Seidel, and a second, Mr. Goodwin. Mr. Devereaux.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino,
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson,
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mr. Robbins,
Yes.
Mr. Roth,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack.
Yes. Is there any correspondence this evening? Dr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. I attended the New Jersey School Board Association Delegate Assembly on Saturday at West Windsor. I have hopefully a short report. The meeting started off with a report from the executive director, Larry Feinsod, pointed out that attendance at the county School Board Association training has been up 70% since 2012-13. Emphasize the fact that we've had no due increases in 7 consecutive years. Just for those who don't know, their budget is about $7.5 million. Non-due revenue is up 32% this year, and that's one of their focuses is to try to not be so dependent upon us paying dues to fund their budget. They have a focus in this upcoming year on encouraging candidates to run for school boards. This year in the state, it was the largest number of vacant seats after the elections ever. So there were a lot of vacant seats, not enough people running. So that took an hour, leaving 2 hours for the meeting, and we had 6 resolutions. First one was a resolution concerning alternative methods of achieving graduation requirements beyond standardized tests. There were various changes in the wording of the amendment. This went on for 1.5 hours. Just changing words, changing phrases. An hour and a half later, they went back to the original wording, and the resolution was adopted. Second resolution was to allow school boards to mandate a minimum graduation age above the current 16 years. There was one amendment in the language replacing graduation with compulsory education, and that was adopted. So they're going to forward the resolution to the state to allow us to increase the minimum graduation age above 16 if we so choose. The third resolution was just rewording of a current resolution that's on the books currently. It addresses the limit of the cap and the spending growth limits on mandated programs that are passed down by the state. They wanted to just add wording to add a phrase, and any unfunded or underfunded curriculum programs mandated for all students. That resolution was defeated. It was just rewording of a current resolution. The fourth resolution was one concerning permitting local districts to accept tuition students while participating in inter-district public school choice program when all locally designated seats have been filled. This was forwarded by the Glassboro district. The problem is that the inter-district public school choice program is funded by the state, and there's a limit on the funding for the state. So once they reach that number of students that they're allowed to be funded into the program, they're not allowed to bring any other students in, even if they pay. That passed. The fifth resolution concerned districts should not bear financial burden of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, the Cadillac tax, and be allowed to shift to less expensive health benefit plans, passing costs of plans to their employees, and other actions to reduce the impact. That passed. Then finally, with 5 minutes left before 12 noon, at which time we would have had to adjourn and reconvene at a different time to discuss the last motion. 5 minutes left. The motion was, we oppose any measure to transfer the obligation to fund pension systems from the state to local districts. So in 5 minutes, that passed. Inexplicably, 5 people voted against that. So that made me wonder how accurate the electronic voting system was, because I couldn't imagine anybody voting against that. But anyway, that was a delegate assembly. Any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Matlack.
Thank you very much. Any other items of correspondence? Okay, seeing none, we will move to our board representative reports this evening. And I will note that this is our last meeting with the current representatives for this year. And at our next meeting, we will recognize your service to the board for this school year, and we will welcome our new representatives for next year. So this evening, we will start with Drew from East.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack, and good evening to everyone. It truly does sadden me to say that tonight will be the end of my term on the board. Now, the reason for my sadness is not because of any unfinished agenda I have, not because of any regrets I have, and especially not because of no longer having the privilege to sit through Tim's 20-minute reports. My sadness is rather because of this unique experience coming to a close. By sitting in a seat next to you all for the past school year, I've truly learned so much and are now being sent off to college a better man. I cannot think of a better way of closing out my term than by showing my deep appreciation to you all. I thank each and every one of you for providing students with this opportunity, I really do. No other position in high school that I'm aware of provides the same real-world and involved experience. Even if I do not agree with you on some issues, I do know that your intentions are to do what is best for the district, and that means a lot to myself and the student body. A special thanks must be given to my co-representative, Tim. Tim, as you know, is an extremely dedicated young man with an unmatchable sense of humor. Working besides Tim has pushed me to be more active and a better communicator, and has overall been a pleasure. Tim has undeniably worked on making some great progress to changes that will benefit the district. We will be separated for the next 4 years, as Tim will be attending American University. However, our East-West rivalry, I'm sure, will cross paths again one day. Last but most definitely not least, Dr. Malash. Dr. Malash is someone that I've looked up to and someone who has served as a true role model. I would say our relationship started on a rough patch when I harassed him with tough questions at our first town hall meeting. Thankfully, he was cool enough to put that aside and has taught me so many valuable lessons since. Dr. Malash, thank you for all you've done for me and for your continued dedication to our district as a whole. I think each and every one of you can look back in your childhood and sort of pinpoint one position or experience that you had where you actually learned from hands-on experience. Something that made you think in a different way. Something that made you, or matured you. That was this position for me, and for that I'm very thankful. It does seem like just yesterday when I arrived for my first meeting ever, only to see hundreds of teachers protesting for better contracts. Now that was quite a first meeting, if I do say so myself. Luckily, the remainder of the meetings lacked that level of intensity, but there have been many public opinions criticizing the board since. I am not saying that those are not important, but it is equally as important to remember those speakers who come up to publicly praise and give thanks to the board for what they do, and I think that's a good life lesson in general. Along with this, I think we all take away so many great life lessons from this district, and that is why you all chose to be here. Cherry Hill is the greatest place on earth, and without a doubt in my mind, it will continue to be. With that being said, I continue to give my final East report. Despite having less than a month left of school, the East community continues to put some amazing events and have reached some amazing accomplishments. Earlier this month, we had our cum laude inductions, where along with the top 10% of the junior class and the 20% of senior class, 4 teachers, Ms. Hager, Mr. Dilks, Mr. Churchio, and Mr. Hume, were inducted for the academic contributions to the Cherry community. Looking back to the 7th of this month, we had our one acts, and we also had a lot of other talent-related events this month. On the 18th, we had our photo and art show, which was set up in the East Gym. We had our choral concert, which for those of you who went out was phenomenal. Yesterday, myself and the boys tennis team unfortunately took a loss against Shawnee in the sectional finals, but we were very happy and blessed to have gotten to that point. Today, the Athletes Against Bullying Club brought in Jamie Moyer, and for those Philly fans out there, or non-Philly fans, he was a pitcher for the Phillies, and he came to speak up against acting up when you see bullying, so that was awesome. Tomorrow is the band concert, and the next day are the jazz band and orchestra concerts, which are going to be followed up by the next Tuesday of having the senior solo night. So a lot of vocal and band talent that will be coming for the remainder of the month. June 2nd is our senior prom, and for any of those concerts, you can find the times on the Cherry's master calendar, which is on the school's main website. Last but not least, we did have our town hall meeting today with Dr. Malash. Some great discussion did go on. My apologies and credits do go out to Dr. Malash, though. For those of you, I'm sure everyone knows here, high schoolers can tend to get a little antsy and aggressive, and I think there is a fine line between showing passion and showing respect as well. So with that being said, I will be sure to make sure that the students act in a more respectful manner next time, and the discussion goes a little more smoothly. But that being said, we did discuss great things everywhere from the science curriculum to ways of improving the park scheduling. We talked about some great ideas with maybe renting computers or sort of borrowing with Wes and, working together with them. And we also talked about our overall relationship with the board, between the board and the students. And Dr. Malash did a great job of clarifying that he, and speaking on behalf of all of you, want nothing more than to have a good relationship with the students. Sitting in the back of the room and allowing the next year's Board of Education representative, Caitlin Boyle, to run the meeting was bittersweet for me, but I do know that her, along with Ezra Newgill, will do a fantastic job in the upcoming year. And all that being said, again, I thank all of you.
Thank you, Drew. We have something prepared for next meeting as recognition, but I would like to say at this time that we appreciate you stating your opinions during this past year to us. And we work well together when we state our opinions respectfully, as both of you have done, and we have that discussion. And that's what it's all about. And, to hear you recognize that, and that your peers recognize that, is good for us to know, and we hope it continues. Thank you. And Tim, your turn now.
Good evening, and thank you, Mrs. Matlack. I think it's funny Drew made fun of my long speeches. You know how long that was? I timed it. It was your longest of the year, so you come at me, and that's what happens. Yes, it has. But that's okay. So I'm going to go opposite order of Drew. I'm going to start with my report and then do the sappy thank yous afterwards. The West baseball team today, we had the first time in our team history that we had a suspended game yesterday due to lightning. Came back out today up by 1 run, went down by 1 run, went back up by 1 run, almost blew it, but held off Vineland, who put up a great fight. And we have a playoff game on Thursday against Washington Township, attempting to move into the Group 4 semifinal for South Jersey. So our baseball team is certainly doing very well. We're in the Diamond Classic and ranked at the moment, I believe it's number 3, according to the Courier Post. The Inquirer put us at 4, but we should be 3. Trust me. And our West softball team, on the last day of the regular season, qualified for their own postseason and then upset number 1 seeded Cumberland. So, yeah, and they were also featured on a Twitter page for dancing during a rain delay. So they are having a banner week over there on the West softball field. We're very happy for Coach Franzosi and all of them. The Hall of Fame inductees were announced yesterday. We were told it was the 55th year that West has had a Hall of Fame. We had 9 girls and 5 boys. I was privileged enough to be voted by the teachers and students as one of those Hall of Famers. And the girls were sure to point out that they almost doubled us. They did love to point that out. I don't know if anyone was there because students weren't allowed in, unfortunately, but the cook-off was last Friday. I'm not sure if anyone was able to come out. All of our international classes put on a fantastic show, and Miss Rivas was all over the news. She does an incredible job. I saw her today, and she wouldn't let me in when I tried to get in, and she said to me, "I hope you're not mad. Don't hold hard feelings," because she knows how I love the food there. It is outstanding. So hopefully some of you were able to come out to that. I know we had some alumni come back and judge, and they said it was phenomenal, as it always is. NHS inductions for the new class were on May 11th. Mr. Field ran a great show over there. The music trip to Williamsburg, sounds like they had a lot of fun there. I know that was last weekend, right after the end of AP exams, so that's a good release because AP exams were tough. So thank goodness they got to have some fun down there. Our music program is fantastic, and I know that everyone who went said that they had a great time. The junior dinner dance was on May 12th, and senior prom is coming up next week. Alongside that, with looking forward to things, we also have our senior trip where we will be leaving tomorrow at 2:30. So I am excited to be getting on a plane. Senioritis has taken full effect, so getting out of town for a few days won't hurt anybody. And the students at Cherry Hill West are looking forward to my final town hall with Dr. Malash on the 31st. Hopefully it's a little less tense than East. I don't know. I heard the report. It sounds like it was, and I give you credit, Dr. Malash. You are remarkable at firing back and answering every question and answering it really well. So good for you. We will see you on the 31st. We will see you on the 31st. And also, and later that day, we will actually be interviewing for the new Board of Ed rep position from West. And we have 4 incredible girls who applied for the position. And I'm looking forward to interviewing them and getting to choose my successor. It'll be big shoes to fill, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm tooting my own horn a little too much. So things at West are still going full speed ahead, even as we enter here at the end of May, but certainly the seniors are embracing their final moments here as we are under 10 academic days until graduation, which is a bit of a weird thought. So on that kind of weird melancholy note, there are a few people that I'd like to thank. So Ms. Roskoff, Dr. Morton, Ms. Gendelman, and Katie and Alexa, who served on the committee that appointed me to this position. I want to thank them. I know they're not here, but they were the people who gave me the opportunity to interview, who prepared me for the role I would have to embark on here, and who did get to appoint me to that position. I'd like to thank Mr. Bova and Mr. Tully, who were my teacher endorsers. They wrote very good letters. I know Mr. Tully said, I wrote you a good one, Timmy. There's no way you don't get it. So I certainly have to thank him for that. And obviously because I can't name them all, the amazing teachers, counselors, and administrators I've had in this district, and there have been so many that then it would really be a long speech if I had to name all of them. My friend Drew, it has been an honor to sit beside you this year, my friend, working hard to fight for the issues that we both care about. The East-West rivalry has taken a little simmer down here at this table as we've put aside the partisan politics and really gotten to combine on some ideas and some issues, and that's been really fun. We have a good working relationship up here, and we've had that all year. Being separate for 4 years will be tough. It will be, but the University of Michigan is getting an outstanding young man and student. Beyond that, Penn State, Michigan at the Big House this year, I want a ticket. Save a seat. I'm going to be right there next to you. I respect all the work that you've done for the East community, running the town halls, and being here at all of these meetings, speaking so candidly and openly and honestly about every subject area imaginable, and backing me up even with some of my crazy ideas. I really do appreciate it, and I wish you all the best of luck. I'd like to thank all of you for letting me speak and letting me ask questions. Each and every one of you, particularly the board leadership, Mrs. Matlack, Dr. Dickinson, and Mr. Roth last year, you got grilled by me on some things. I like knowing everything about anything that there is to know, and I could be a little stubborn with my question asking and comments, and I appreciate that you all handled those questions and comments and really gave the students of Cherry Hill West a voice. That was one of the most gratifying things about having this position, was kids would come up to me saying, well, I know you can do something, so here, I want you to say this. Wasn't always able to say what they wanted to say. 7:30 was still something they were so persistent about even now, but it it has, and that's been cool for me, and you all have really enabled that to be possible, that the students of Cherry Hill West know that they have a voice who cares about them, and giving me a sounding board for myself, for my teachers, for the administrators, and for everyone who does take an interest in what we do at Cherry Hill West each and every day. So that has truly been a pleasure, and thank you. Dr. Malash, I had you as a principal for a year here on the board, and your wife still made me the best Oreo cookie brownies I have ever had in my entire life. You are so vested in this community and care so much about everything we do. Seeing you at athletic events, at extracurricular events, at plays for both buildings, not just us, and not just the high schools, at the middle and the elementary level. It truly speaks volumes about who you are as a person, and it has been an honor to sit on this board alongside you for this year. And finally, I would like to thank my mom. She is with us in the crowd tonight. She is out there. She just gave a wave. I wouldn't let her come to any meetings. I don't let her come to anything, because whenever she would come to baseball games, I would strike out. And I finally let her come to mock trial this year, and that was a big step for us. We made some progress. She and my father chose this district 20 years ago as the schools that they wanted to send their son to, and it ended up working out pretty well. She is an amazing teacher in the classroom and at home, and I have inherited her genuine care for everyone that I meet, and her sense of humor, so you can thank her for these long speeches. That is her. My dad wasn't very funny. It was all her. It was all her. It has been my pleasure serving as the student representative to the Board of Education, and for the final time, I will yield back to you, Mrs. Matlack. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Tim. And I'm glad to know that you feel that it was a learning experience and that your questions were listened to and answered. And as a school district and as board members, it's a learning experience for us each year as well. As we go through the year, we learn and we grow together with our board representatives. So I'm glad it was a positive experience for you too. Thank you. Okay, so next up on our agenda, we have our first public discussion. At this time, you may come to the microphone and address any issue that is on our agenda this evening. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes for your remarks. Mr. Swarovski, I don't believe I need to tell you about the lights.
Good evening. I'm Martin Swarovski, President, Cherry Hill Education Association. I'd like to direct your attention, if you're looking at the board agenda, to page 43 of the board agenda. And at this time, I would like to express my thanks to the board for the resolution, which calls for the adoption of a 457 plan. It took me a year and a half of fighting with Mr. Devereaux to get that plan in place, but we finally have it in place, and it will benefit not only the district, but it will benefit the employees who are retiring after this year, because it doesn't benefit us now. But I'd like to thank Mr. Devereaux and the board for hopefully adopting that procedure. I do have one question, and that question is about the 457 plan. Will that be open to all providers? All of our vendors, who are presently, if they solicit out the people, they would receive, through Omni, everything else that goes along with it. Okay. That's the whole question, but thank you very much, and hopefully the board will go and approve it unanimously, because it's a good thing that we benefit from it, as retirees. Unfortunately it won't be me, but we also, the board and the district benefits it from it, good couple $1,000s a year, a good couple $1,000s a year. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swarovski. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, I will turn it over to the superintendent for his comments. Dr. Malash.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. I just want to start by thanking the boys, and we'll have some stuff in June, on June 14th, Flag Day, so dress appropriately, at our next meeting, as you guys transition. But I am grateful, and as I was listening to the guys speak, I do have a bit of a worry that, the influence that I've had is you both have gotten to really like the sound of your voice through the microphone, which I claim a little responsibility for. So well done, boys. Carry that on as you move into the future. There's nothing wrong with that at all. The guys did talk about all the activities that are going on at the two high schools, and this is an incredibly intense beautiful, wonderful, frustrating, amazing time in a school district. You know, from Barclay at the Early Childhood Center, as the kids are wrapping up their year, there's fun activities, and spring, the kids can finally start to get back outside as we had a little bit of sunshine that's coming through, all the way up from the middle schools, the elementary schools, and into the high schools. As the guys talked about, there are not a lot of instructional days left prior to the onset of the final exams and then leading up into graduation. And as a reminder, graduation is June 16th. High School West will graduate in the morning, High School East in the afternoon, both at the Leah Chorus Center. I have told, and I will tell everybody out publicly, have told the Zone PTA folks, if you have not been to a graduation, they're always looking for folks to volunteer to help out. It's a great way to see graduation to Leah Chorus. It's an incredible place for a graduation ceremony. It's climate controlled, and you get to see the difference in what goes on at the two high schools. So if anybody wants to volunteer, they are also looking for folks at Project Graduation through both PTAs. Project Graduation for High School East is at the JCC, and it runs from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. I'm sorry, High School West is the JCC. High School East is at the Racket Club. Same thing. So contact the schools if you want to volunteer and get out and see the kids as they graduate and see what goes on with them. I've had the opportunity over the last few weeks to be in a lot of the schools. This is an exciting time for events to go on. And just a couple of highlights. I did see the art shows at both of the high schools, and it's an absolute incredible thing for me to see what kids can do in so many different medium. You know, whether it's the metal in the jewelry class or the clay at both of the high schools, the photography, the painting, the drawing, the sustainable design classes, what the kids are producing is incredible. Tie that in with what's going on at the concerts, and spring concerts are going on across the district. One of the greatest things that we offer as a comprehensive school district, preschool through 12th grade, is a full complement of the arts. And we have the opportunity for all of our kids to be involved. And if your child is not involved directly in one of the concerts, find one of the schools where the concert's going on and go see it. See these kids sing, see them play their instruments, see them perform. Go and see the art shows. The elementary schools have hosted art shows recently. It's incredible. One of the highlights for me each month is the artwork that we display here in the building. Dr. Rushi, a number of years ago, started displaying artwork in the superintendent's office, and it's fantastic. So it rotates through every month. Different school brings artwork in, and then we do a reception, and we invite the artists and their families to come in and to see the artwork. And it's fascinating to stand and to talk to a 7-year-old about what her inspiration was as she created this painting that there's no way that I believe at this stage of my life I could produce. And again, up to the high school and to see what the kids do. I was over at Sharp Elementary School last Friday night. They had their first ever international night, and it was incredible. The moms that put it together and the PTA through their involvement, I think there were 14 or 15 different countries that were represented, traditional clothing, traditional food, there was music. They set up a huge display. There were passports that were created. It's just amazing. And again, it's part of the great thing, and these guys kind of articulated tonight, that goes on in the district. The differences that everybody brings to the community and how people come together. These guys met each other at the opening of the year. You know, and I would say the way that they interact, the way that they describe, the way that they have gone through this year have become friends. They truly are built across the district. They are the best, some of the best that we have to offer. And if these guys from two high schools can embrace one another and what goes on, and we can see all the great events that go on, then the rest of us throughout the district continue to do so. So as you spend the next few weeks, as we get ready for the high school graduations and the middle school graduations on June 15th, please go out and be involved. Please see what goes on. And each time when you are someplace, thank the people that are there. Remember, kindness matters. Saying thank you matters. We'll continue to remind the kids and the adults of that as we finish up.
Thank you, Dr. Malash. Now we will move into our action agenda, and we will start with Mrs. Seidel and the C&I agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2015-2016 school year. Number 2, approval of out-of-district student placements for 2015-2016 school year. Number 3, approval of middle school supplemental literature books for the 2016-2017 school year. Number 4, approval of summer middle school reading list. Number 5, approval of special education agreements for the 2015-2016 school year under $17,500. Number 6, approval of non-public technology for the 2015-2016 school year. Number 7, approval of non-public textbook for the 2016-2017 school year. Number 8, approval of non-public technology for the 2016-2017 school year. Number 9, resolution authorizing the provision of professional development services for 2015-2016 school year. Number 10, approval of the Perkins Grant for the 2016-2017 school year. And you have a yellow handout, which is item 11, approval to volunteer to chaperone overnight trip. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Devereaux.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson,
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mr. Robbins,
Yes.
Mr. Roth,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack.
Yes to all. Thank you, Mrs. Seidel. We'll now move to B and F with Dr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. A, approval of appointments. B, approval of reaffirmation of policies, actions, rules, and regulations. C, approval of resolution, educational services. D, approval of resolution, board meeting advertisements. E, approval of bank accounts. F, approval of investment of funds. G, approval of tax receipt schedule. And number 1, financial reports. Number 2, resolutions. Number 3, resolution for the award of bids. Number 4, resolution for the award of transportation. Number 5, resolution to approve the restated Cherry Hill Board of Education 403B retirement plan. Number 6, resolution authorization adoption of a 457B deferred saving plan. 7, resolution appointing an assistant qualified purchasing agent. And 8, acceptance of donations. Do I have a second? Mrs. Scarpellino, any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Devereaux.
Dr. Dickinson,
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mr. Robbins,
Abstaining with respect to New Jersey American on the bill list. Yes to the remainder.
Mr. Roth,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel,
Abstaining with respect to CDW on the bill list. Yes to the rest.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes to all.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Abstaining with regards to Bancroft Neurohealth on the bill list. Yes to the remaining.
Mrs. Matlack.
Yes to all. Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. Next up, we have the HR agenda with Mrs. Judge.
Thank you, Mrs. Malick. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Termination of employment certificated. Number 2, termination of employment non-certificated. Number 3, appointment certificated. Number 4, appointments non-certificated. Number 5, leaves of absence certificated. Number 6, leaves of absence non-certificated. Number 7, assignment salary change certificated. Number 8, other compensation certificated. Number 9, other motions. Number 10, other motions. Number 11, other motions, ratification of memorandum of school administrators. Do I have a second? Mr. Roth. Any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Devereaux.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mr. Robbins,
Yes.
Mr. Roth,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes to all.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes to all.
Dr. Dickinson,
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack.
Yes to all. Thank you, Mrs. Judge. And now I will turn it over to Mr. Goodwin with the P&L agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. 1, second reading and adoption of revised policies. 2, first reading of revised policies. 3, approval of harassment, intimidation, bullying, investigation decisions. 4, approval of resolution to support the Cherry Hill Township Roadmap to our future document. And the final is resolution number 5, which is the green sheet that was passed out or on the table. And that's a waiver of procedure S3, secondary field trips. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge, are there any questions? If If not, Mr. Devereaux.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mr. Robbins,
Yes.
Mr. Roth,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack.
Yes to all. Before we move on to our strategic planning, of which there are no items, I will say. But before we move on, we just approved a resolution supporting the Township of Cherry Hill in their roadmap to our future document that they have produced. Dr. Malash and I attended a presentation ceremony this morning where they introduced the document. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Malash to say a few words about that, as he has worked with the township on that.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. And just very briefly, I do want to thank the board for the support of this and for the continued support that the school board and that the district has provided towards this plan. And this is a plan, and it's a work product from the township. This is something that Dr. Rushi was intimately involved in serving on the committee. It's a committee that I've been serving on, and it involves work that goes on throughout the district and throughout the community. I think it's a critical piece, and as we listen to some of the folks from Sustainable Jersey and some of the other folks who were there, it's a unique relationship that exists between the Township of Cherry Hill and the school district, working so closely together and endorsing the same programs and being involved in the same programs. The school district has been a leader in the state in terms of the work towards sustainability. As you know, we were one of 5 school districts in the state to have all of our schools certified by Sustainable Jersey last year. And the fact that we have 19 schools and they all met at least the bronze level of certification was fantastic. So it's ongoing work that's absolutely tremendous. We were fortunate, and the ceremony took place at Barclay Farmstead today. And as you all know, it's the 200th anniversary of the farmstead, and there's ongoing celebration that will take place. Our students, our elementary students, all travel to the farmstead throughout the course of the year to go on tours and to see what goes on there and what life was like. We were fortunate to have Miss Foley and Miss Monahan from Russell Knight. They were there with their students, and they stayed, and they were part of the ceremony, so they got to be honored. And it was just serendipitous that they were also the class from Russell Knight that put together the display that was put out at the Earth Festival a few weeks ago. So again, thank you to the board. Thank you for continuing to endorse and to support this, and for helping us to foster such a positive relationship with the folks at Town Council and with the Mayor's office.
Thank you, Dr. Malash, and thank you for your work on this committee, working with the township on our behalf. We appreciate it. And now we will move to strategic planning. Mr. Roth, you have no items, I believe.
I have nothing to say.
Well then.
That's unusual.
Yes, it is. Okay, at this time we'll move to our second public discussion. And at this time you may approach the microphone and address the board on any topic. Again, you will have 3 minutes for your remarks. Please state your name and your address, and please no knocking anybody over in your race to get to the microphone.
It's still plenty of time to get home. I know we're talking in the hallway about hopefully this will be a short meeting, so I will make these comments very short. Nobody more than me knows what went into negotiations, and nobody more than me knows what went into retro pay. And we got our first retro check about 2 weeks ago, to be exact, and the effort that was put into that procedure by the HR office and by the payroll office is beyond belief. They, for the number of things that had to be considered and the number of minor errors, and every single error was dealt with professionally and completely to everybody's satisfaction. It was amazing. And I'd like to publicly thank the HR office and the payroll office for a job well done. And I hope that the next one, which is coming out in about 7 days, will be just as easy. So thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Lisa, for your whole work, for the work that you did on making this so possible and so the way that it worked. And board, you should be very proud of them because they did a yeoman's job. Some of my colleagues were not so professional in dealing, with their issues and their problems, but they handled it professionally and very nicely, and I commend them for a job well done. I have Steve Redfern sitting behind me, and I'd like to, at this particular moment, talk about, first of all, Volley for Support. For those of you who are not aware, Volley for Support raised, almost $62,000, which is a record amount of money for that particular event for the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. And the work of Steve and his wife Kim and their entire committee is commendable. They won't go, and they're not the type of people to stand up here and take the praise, but they deserve a lot of praise for a job well done. I'd also like to talk about the fact that next Friday evening on June the 3rd, we have the seniors prom, not senior prom, the seniors prom, which is at Carusi, at this particular moment, which is sponsored in part by NJEA Pride program, as well as anybody else that Steve and Kim can get to donate things to the program. We have over 100 seniors signed up for the evening. We have music, we have entertainment, we have all types of things planned for them. If you have a chance to stop in, it's at Carusi. It starts at 5 o'clock and will go on till, I guess, about 8:30 whenever they get tired. So, wait, can I tell the story about that happened to me today? What do you think? I was telling Nancy and Joe today, and I know I'm going to go over, but we lost a former member of our faculty this morning, and we got notification that he passed away, and he was a coach at Cherry Hill High School East. And I happened to be talking to, and he retired from the district in 1994. And I happened to be talking to a coach from Cherry Hill High School East, and asking whether or not he knew, Don, in any way, shape, or form. Now, I knew Don, but asking if he knew Don in any way. And he said, no, but the old timers would. So I said, wait a second. I said, you just threw me into a bunch that I'm not necessarily ready to be thrown into. So, but the old timers would. So from this old timer, again, thank you to Lisa and to Nancy and your entire staff for all your work on the retros. Thank you to the Board of Education for all. This is the last meeting that I have, which I will be president, at an action committee meeting. And, because I will assume we have elections on Thursday, and I'm assuming that there'll be somebody who will be following me. But I thank all of you for all of your support and understanding. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm disappearing. NJEA has already got me on 3 or 4 different committees, but thank you very much, and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, Mr. Swarovski. Thank you for bringing to our attention the work of the good work of the HR department and our payroll department. And thank you from the board for your work on that. And Mr. Swarovski, we thank you for your work with the district and with us over the years. We did. But thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to approach the microphone? Yes.
My name is Sophia Lee. I'm a parent in Cherry Hill. I have 2 boys, 3rd grade. The older one is 3rd grade, Bret Hart. I just want to follow up. I have some follow-up questions on the Chinese as potentially as an elective language for the high school curriculum. I've been one of the parents involved in lobbying this idea. Potentially the school district can consider Chinese as a potential elective language. I haven't been one of the most active, so I kind of lost track. I know some of us has met with Dr. Malachi and have come to the meeting. Can I get a quick update on what's the status of that? Just brief. I want to be actually more involved as much as I could.
Just a couple of things, Ms. Lee. First, so I don't forget, if you give Mrs. Wilson, and she'll raise her hand, your contact information, Dr. Mahan, who's our Director of Curriculum now, will reach out to you. But briefly, in a nutshell, so over the course of about 2 years, we looked at the possibility of doing Mandarin Chinese as a pilot. The supervisor who was working with us at the time, he actually went up, he spent time at the Confucius Center up at Rutgers, visited some other programs and researched the viability, and actually put together a proposal for a 2-year pilot program. It was discussed through the CNI committee at a number of different meetings, presentation done, and then the CNI committee decided not to move it forward, did not see it at this time as being financially viable to offer at the same time with the other world languages. That's just over the course of about 2.5 years or 3 years, in a nutshell with where we are. But if you give Mrs. Wilson your contact information, Dr. Mahan will reach out to you. We can sit down and go through additional information for you.
Sure. Yeah, I'll leave her my information. And more importantly, I think, well, personally, I think it's important. It's a good thing. I don't know what we can do to actually, keep it moving, make sure it doesn't fall off the plate, keep it visible. Eventually, hopefully, something will happen. That's all. Okay, I'll leave the information. Thanks for the attention.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to approach the microphone? Seeing none, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Roth and Mrs. Judge. Thank you, everyone. Good night.